Here we go. Here we go. All right. Okay, is everybody else coming? The lights are bright. Hi, everybody. I'm waiting for Councillor Wiebe and Councillor Fitzgerald. Now, I didn't see Councillor Fitzgerald earlier. We are expecting, I know he was at committee this morning, right? Well, it is 1 o'clock. I suppose we could proceed. Do you think I should proceed? Or wait? We have quorum. So I think, you know what? We have everybody minus Councillor Fitzgerald. So I think I will call this meeting to order and welcome everyone to the hearing. The meeting is being held electronically in accordance with Section 238 of the Municipal Act 2001. The procedures for the meeting are as per the town's procedural bylaw and the electronic meeting protocol during emergencies. I am going to confirm that we do have quorum, although we are at this point missing Councillor Fitzgerald. So I would like to respectfully acknowledge that we are on the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe under the terms of the Robinson-Huron Treaty Number 61 of 1850 and the Williams Treaties of 1923. We commit to acknowledge, learn, educate, create opportunity, honor sacred places, and take actions toward real truth and reconciliation in support of our commitment to walking the path together in respect, peace, and harmony for future generations. So with that, I do have a motion moved by Councillor Stone, seconded by Councillor Armour. It is recommended that the Planning Committee agenda dated October 13th, 2021 be hereby adopted as printed and circulated. All those in favor? That carries. Thank you. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest? Okay, seeing none, we can move right along. And I will officially welcome everyone to the public portion of the meeting to consider applications to amend zoning bylaw 2008-66P pursuant to Section 34 of the Planning Act. The procedure of the public meeting will be as follows. A brief explanation of the purpose and effect of the application and any correspondence received to date will be given by staff. The applicant or their representative will be asked to provide any additional comments without repeating the information already outlined by staff. Any members of the public present will then be permitted to ask questions or provide comments respecting the applications. Committee will then have the opportunity to question the applicant, the planner, or anyone giving presentations. Once the public meeting is concluded, the input received and proposed amendments will be considered by committee and council. Any persons making representation are requested to first state their name and mailing address. Please note that presentations are limited to 10 minutes. Please also be informed that an appellant must provide an oral submission at the public meeting or written submission prior to the passage of the zoning bylaw. Otherwise, the local planning appeal tribunal may dismiss the appeal. If you wish to be notified of the passage of a zoning bylaw, you must file either with the recording secretary or with the clerk a written request for notification prior to the passage of the proposed zoning bylaw. Each notice of complete application and public meeting included an explanation of the purpose and effect of the proposed amendment, and notice was required to be posted at the subject lands. Notice was therefore considered to have been provided in accordance with the provisions of the Planning Act and applicable sections of the Huntsville Official Plan. And with that, we would now like to deal with application number Z22-2021, HT DeGazio, 735 Aspden Road. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Adam, to you.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good afternoon. Just going to share my screen, wait for that to be visible to everyone. Excellent. Through you, Madam Chair, the subject property is located at 735 Aspen Road. Currently, it is zoned rural residential with exception 0108, and that is for a reduced frontage of 20 meters at Aspen Road. And it is also designated rural in the official plan. I trust everyone had originally read the staff report where the proposal was for 2 residential accessory units within the detached garage. The applicant and their agent had reviewed the staff report and the recommendation on the agenda on Friday. And yesterday, staff had received a letter from the agent amending their proposal to 1 unit within the garage instead of the previously requested 2, as outlined in the staff report. So here we can see the proposal now is for 1 unit within the existing detached garage, and they are still requesting an increase of floor area to 148 meters squared. As a result of the change proposal, staff are of the opinion that the proposal is now consistent with the Planning Act and can be given favorable consideration. The intent of limiting the number of secondary uses or secondary units within accessory buildings is to limit massing and compatibility issues between neighboring property owners. No new development is being proposed within this said carriage house. It exists and no expansions are being proposed. As such, with the amended application to 1 residential unit within the secondary building, staff are recommending that the application be supported. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you for that, Adam. So I will now call upon the applicant or their representative to provide any additional comments.
The applicant or the representative are reminded to use the raise hand button to indicate that they would like to address committee. And Chair Alcock, I do see 1 hand raised.
Great, thanks, Crystal.
Please note that during the transition, your video panel will be momentarily interrupted. Once you've been added to the meeting, your video will appear in the committee member panel. Please have your microphone and video, if possible, turned on before you begin speaking and confirm your name and mailing address.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Wayne Simpson and Associates, 3-76 King William Street, Huntsville, P1H1E4. I'm acting as agent for Mike and Christina DeGazio, the property owners. Mr. and Mrs. DeGazio purchased the property about 4 or 5 years ago now. When they purchased it, there was the listing included a mention of a granny flat or a suite on the lower level of this coach house. And they purchased the property with the intention of using that space as accommodation for Christina's mother. But they were subsequently advised that the space had been created unlawfully by the 2 previous owners of the property. They had used it for an apartment, but it was not in accordance with the bylaw requirements. And so the space was then vacated and has not been used since. So we made the application seeking to take advantage of the apartment space that is in the lower level of the building and requested a second possibility that the upper space, which is drywalled and insulated and suitable for an apartment, but not fitted in that manner, could be used as well. Staff and the district planners commented that they thought 2 units was inappropriate and maybe contrary to the official plan. And my clients accept that reasoning, although I, as a planner, somewhat disagree with it because I don't think the intention of the province is to cap the number of secondary units when under Section 16.3, the purpose of the section is really to put the onus on municipalities to make sure things happen as opposed to putting a cap on it. But and it might be something council might want to look at in the future with respect to any initiatives like tiny homes and things like that that someone might want to site on a rural property. But nonetheless, my clients are quite satisfied with the notion of 1 unit. We've asked for the increase in the height of the square footage to 148 in the event that they would choose to use the upper story as the apartment for Mrs. DeGazio Senior. No, not Mrs. DeGazio, Mrs. DeGazio's mother, Friedel. Anyway, so thanks very much. We're quite pleased that the committee staff would recommend approval, and we hope that the committee would look on it favorably. And I'm available to answer any questions if there are any of the committee or the public. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your presentation, Wayne. Appreciate it. And at this time, I would ask if there are any members of the public who would like to address committee on this application.
Members of the public are reminded to use the raise hand button to indicate that they would like to address committee. And Chair Alcock, I can confirm there are no hands raised.
Okay, thanks very much, Crystal. Appreciated. So at this point, I will read the original motion, and followed by, as Adam alluded to, they've already prepared an amendment. So I will read the original, and it was moved by Councillor Stone, seconded by Councillor Armour. It is recommended that Planning Committee deny zoning bylaw amendment Z22-2021 HT, changing the zoning from a rural residential zone with exception 0108 to a rural residential zone with an amended exception 0108 to permit 2 secondary residential dwelling units within an existing detached garage and increase the maximum permitted secondary residential dwelling unit floor area from 75 square meters to 148 square meters. So with that, I am going to move right along and read the proposed amendment as prepared by staff. And it has been moved by Councillor Wiebe, seconded by Councillor Stone. It is recommended that the following word be deleted, deny, and further that the following word be inserted in its place, approve. Okay, a quick question here. Forgive me for 1 second, if that's okay.
I think he did change it.
He did. So forgive me, everybody. We need 30 seconds. We're adding one other part to this amendment, which is the change in the recommendation from 2 secondary units to 1. Okay. But rest assured, I'll give everybody an opportunity to ask questions. Julie is about to share the amended amendment on screen for everybody to see. That looks good. Okay. So I did have, I'm going to reread. It has been moved by Councillor Stone, seconded by Councillor Armour. It is recommended that the following word be deleted, deny, and further that the following word be inserted in its place. Approve, and further that the following word be deleted, 2, and further that the following word be inserted, 1. Okay, with that, I will ask committee if there are any questions. Councillor Stone.
So what I suspect has happened is the applicant, once they found that staff were going to deny this, they were nervous about being able to have even one. So they quickly changed it. When I read all the information, given its size and location, I personally wouldn't have a problem with 2. I don't know how others feel.
Okay, I appreciate that, Councillor Stone. Are there any other comments from committee? Okay, I can't tell who was first. All of a sudden there were 3. Holy cow. I'm going to go with Councillor Fitzgerald, followed by Mayor Terziano, and followed by Councillor Weed.
Thank you, Chair Alcock. I believe the mayor had her hand up previous to mine going up, but I tend to agree with Councillor Stone's comments. You know, that just people finding a place to live is becoming more and more difficult, and it seems there's ample room and space, and it's operated like that. I don't know that we've had any complaints about it, or it seems to not to conform with what's going on in the neighborhood. So I would not have an issue with supporting 2 units either.
Okay, appreciated that. Appreciated. Mayor Terziano.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I wonder if Adam could comment on the actual increase in size. I think you mentioned that this was built without, or is not a legal build. I'm just wondering, what's the maximum size generally of a garage, or it just seems we're doubling the space, and what is our limits on a secondary unit within a garage?
Okay, Adam has his camera on, so over to you.
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair. As of right now in the zoning bylaw, it limits the floor area to 75 square meters for a secondary residential unit. Now, it can be located in an accessory building like this or within an existing dwelling. The idea behind that is to keep the secondary residential unit clearly secondary in nature, the primary use being for a single detached dwelling. Notwithstanding that, this is a large property with quite a large single detached dwelling and a large detached garage. So the comment was all the work is proposed to be fully contained within what's already existing on site. And as a result, staff did not have an issue with the increase in proposed floor area for that secondary residential unit. We do believe that it will still be clearly secondary to the primary use.
If I might have one further one, and this one might be directed more towards Wayne, if 2 units had been allowed, what was the proposed usage of the second?
Through you, Madam Chair. Yeah, the intention was that one of the units would be used by Christina's mother, and that the other would be available for rent, or maybe another family member coming back home or something to that effect. It was, you know, the space is ready to, sort of apartment ready in terms of being able to equip it. So their intention was to try to utilize both spaces. But the priority, and Councillor Stone was correct, that when there was an opportunity, it was thought that one space would not be approved, then we clearly dropped back from 2 to 1, because that was the priority, is to have an apartment for Christina's mother. But and in terms of the one question you just asked, the mayor just asked, was that in the official plan, section 2.3.6 in the Huntsville official plan, sets out the parameters for consideration of secondary units, and there's no a maximum square footage requirement in that section. It speaks about a variety of sizes and circumstances, but so the zoning bylaw has a cap in it right now, and I appreciate Adam's recollection of that amount, but the official plan doesn't go that far, and I expect that maybe as the bylaws, as the new zoning bylaws develop, the town might consider changing, removing that number of specificity from the bylaw, unless there's other reasons that like Adam has elaborated on. But thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Okay, that's good. Councillor Weed.
Thank you, Chair Alcock. It doesn't. I'm a little confused on this one. I'm trying to go back to how it is that if the proponent's mother was going to live in this suite, that we would even be here. It seems to me that if you've got a little coach house or something, and a family member staying there, I don't understand why we're here. So, and then second to that, I don't totally disagree with the comments earlier from Councillor Stone or Councillor Fitzgerald. You know, if housing is made available, long-term housing, I could probably maybe get my head around it. I'm not keen to bend the rules to add an Airbnb, for example, but I would contemplate a long-term rental if as a third unit, I guess you would say, on the property. Anyway, those are my comments. Thanks.
Appreciated, and you took the words out of my mouth. And I think I will ask Mr. Simpson to comment on that, because very clearly I believe you did make reference to the fact that the family, one unit is for a family member and the other unit was intended for long-term rental or another family member.
Thank you again, Madam Chair. Yeah, because there was no certainty that the second unit would be approved, it was something that the Gazios were saying that they would like to have that opportunity. You know, it could be something that could be used as a long-term rental. It could be something to accommodate a medical practitioner that's here on residency or something like that, or it could be their daughter lives in the States as well and may come back. So the idea was that it would be available. The space is there. It's readily usable once it's outfitted. So, but I can't say that if it was approved that it would definitely be a long-term rental. And I believe we're here because the zoning bylaw requires the secondary units be located in the dwelling. And in this instance, we're talking about an accessory building, which is clearly contemplated under Section 16.3 of the Planning Act, and clearly accommodated under the new official plan, but not yet translated into the provisions of the zoning bylaw.
I appreciate that. I think where Councillor Weeb was going, and I'll ask Councillor Weeb to speak to it, but I think you were saying at one point if someone was proposing a secondary suite in an accessory building, that we thought that should be fairly straightforward, you know, and not require an undue process, right? So I might be wrong. Councillor Weeb?
Thanks. If I could just quickly follow up. No, I guess what I'm saying is it still sort of confuses me as to why, if you were going to have family members or people you know stay with you, we would be in a planning meeting. Like, it doesn't add up for me. So anyway, that's my point. And what I'm saying is that if we put in any provisions that said that it wouldn't accommodate a short-term rental, then I would be okay with contemplating it. But as it stands, right. I will concur with staff and only allow the one.
Okay. And what I'm gathering, Wayne, is that you're not prepared at this point, nor is your client, to say that they won't be considering short-term rental at some point, that it's wide open.
Yeah, unfortunately, Madam Chair, I can't comment on that. I don't have. I'm not with my client right now, and I don't know if Crystal could confirm if the Gazios are online and maybe they could enter the fray.
Crystal.
Through you, Chair Alcock, I do see that the applicant is here and has raised their hand. Would you like me to bring them in?
I would very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair and council members. I think maybe Wayne and I didn't even really discuss some of the details regarding what we had envisioned initially when we made the application. We were hoping that my mom could stay on the lower level of the building because she's a senior. She just turned 81 and she's going to need more assistance as she ages.
Right.
But we were definitely hoping to rent out the second floor. We know that there is a dramatic shortage of rental housing in Huntsville. And we actually, when we started this whole process, we had at least 4 families come to us and say, hey, can you put us on your list so that when things get completed, we can apply to rent?
Okay, that's very helpful. So you would absolutely consider this to be a long-term rental?
Absolutely. We don't, my daughter is currently living in Nashville and she would never want to come back unless she had to.
And why, when you're in Nashville, why would you want to? There you go. It's a great place, Nashville. All right, I appreciate that. And I noticed, Councillor Weeb, you have your hand up.
Okay, thanks. Okay, I'll make this quick and my final thoughts.
Right.
That is, if us as a committee, we want to put into this application the parameters of it, it's then I would be okay with it. I'm not actually interested in what possibly the applicant could use it for. What I'm saying is that if we put it in writing that this is what the use is and this is what is permitted, and that being a long-term rental, I'm okay with approving it. But I'm not going to go on
Right.
sort of a promise or this or that. It's I would approve it if it's in writing from
Yep.
our committee.
Yep. All right, thanks for that. And with that, I would ask Adam if you could give us some direction on this, because it seems that there are a few councillors who would consider a further amendment if that's what's required. Maybe you could speak to it and we can take another break, or Adam.
Absolutely, Madam Chair. And I also see Director Maxwell has her hand up too, so she might have something to add to this.
Okay. All right. I will actually ask Director Maxwell.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was just going to clarify. I know Councillor Weeb was asking why they were here with an application in the first place, if it was going to be a family member. And it was just to note that only one accessory residential unit is permitted on a rural property currently if it's in an accessory structure. And the size is limited in the zoning bylaws. It stands to a smaller, I believe it's, I have to ask Adam what the size is, but it's less than what's being proposed by the applicant currently. The issue that we have is not necessarily that our official plan is incorrect or needs to be amended in order to recognize 2 units in an accessory structure. It truly is the way the Planning Act has been worded. Whether or not the province will update that to allow 2 units in an accessory structure moving forward, it's really very specific. So that's where I think some of the confusion lay previously. And I would also note, just to perhaps allay Councillor Weeb's concern, that a short-term rental accommodation unit is not permitted as of right in an accessory structure. So whether or not this ended up being something that was proposed by the applicants, they would have to come back for a zoning amendment in order to be able to do that. So.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you. While you're there, if I may follow up, because there was something I was confused with when I read the comments from the district, and perhaps Director Maxwell, you could clarify what this. Should council wish to give consideration to this application, the town should be satisfied that the proposed dwelling units will be clearly ancillary to the primary use and not function as secondary standalone primary dwelling units. I'm not really sure I get that. I'm not, if you could explain what the distinction is between what is being compared to there.
I believe that Adam had quite a few discussions with district planning staff about it, but yeah, if you
I'll ask Adam.
respond
Thank
or
you.
not. Yeah.
No, for sure. That's great. Adam. If you could-
Absolutely. Thank you, Madam Chair. So I did have a number of discussions with district staff. First and foremost, the way their official plan is written, it only permits one secondary residential dwelling unit. So the first comment was that the proposal, which was originally 2 units, was not consistent. So that was their first comment. The second comment then also spoke to the Planning Act provisions, which, as Director Maxwell pointed out, is very explicit in the location of where these units are to be contained. One, it allows for one in the primary dwelling and one in a garage, but it does not allow for 2 in a detached garage. So both, it was the opinion of staff and district staff that the proposal was not consistent with the Planning Act, and that's why originally our recommendation was that the application not be approved. Further to that, with their questions about being ancillary, I believe it's just another word to make sure that it wasn't the primary use. They were worried that if we allowed 2 dwelling units in an accessory structure, that would actually be the primary use of the property, and that the actual single detached dwelling would then be secondary as a result. I believe that was the intent of that comment, was that we now have 2 units in an accessory structure and only 1 single detached dwelling. And they were of the opinion that the 2 units in the accessory structure would be the primary use at that point, which is counterintuitive to their official plan as well as the Planning Act.
Okay, that last comment explains it. I didn't get that, so thank you for that. All right, so at this point, I'm going to ask committee if there's any appetite to provide another amendment, to consider another amendment for the 2 units, or if we're satisfied with the existing amendment. Councillor Stone.
Yes, I'd be happy to move to allow the 2 units. I know Councillor Armour has been waiting patiently to speak as well.
Oh, has he? My apologies, I didn't see that. Okay, sorry, Councillor Armour.
But I'm happy to make the amendment to go back to the original.
All right, Councillor Armour. My apologies.
Thank you, Chair Alcock. Just if it was illegal to begin with or not, how do we know that it meets the building code? Have we had planning go through the building to ensure that it's going to meet that standard? Do we have a housing unit in it?
Good question.
Madam Chair, through you, the applicants, as well as myself, have all been in consultation with the building department. I believe they do have a permit out or have applied for a permit for some work, and I have talked with the town's chief building official that depending on committee's decision today and ultimately council's decision, that the unit will be brought into compliance with the building code should it be given favorable consideration.
Okay, Councillor Armour?
Yeah, just one more. I'm just curious. How many bedrooms is it currently, if they're going to make 2 rooms out of it?
You mean two units?
Yeah, if they're going to turn it into 2 units, right now, if they had 1 unit, how many bedrooms would it be? And if they made it 2 units, would it be 1-bedroom units, or are they going to be 2-bedroom units?
Okay. I guess Christina.
Currently, the way that each floor is set up, both units would have 2 bedrooms. When we moved here, before we found out that it was all not legally proper, everything had already been drywalled and all the appliances were already in place on the lower level, and upstairs all the bathrooms had already been put in. So we're just working with what was already in existence. So it would be 2 2-bedroom units.
which your mother would be in one of them.
One of them, yes.
Okay, thank you for that. And Councillor Stone, so you're prepared to move another amendment. I'm wondering if you wanted to, in that amendment, add the addition of conditions, and maybe before the condition that it not be rented. And I will go to Mayor Terziano in one sec, but I want a comment from Adam or Director Maxwell, how that condition might be worded, or if that's something we can do.
So, Madam Chair, just for clarification, you're looking for a condition about the
short-term rental. It won't be used. It's that it's used as a long-term rental. So is that something that I believe I understand from Councillor Wiebe that was an important feature of a proposed amendment?
Absolutely. I believe, in my opinion, based on our short-term rental policy and them not being permitted in secondary or accessory structures, that wouldn't be a concern. However, should council wish to put something in, that would, your committee, sorry, that would be their prerogative.
Okay, that sounds like I think you're exactly right. So Director Maxwell, you have your mute off, so.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair Alcock. I was just going to add to what Adam had mentioned, that it is already not permitted. So adding it in again
it's redundant.
Would really be redundant. We could do it, but there wouldn't be much point. So.
Okay, that's great. All right, does that satisfy you, Councillor Wiebe? Knowing that, perfect. Okay, so I'm going to, Adam, do you need 5 minutes with Julie to prepare this next amendment? Or is it just to revert back to the original? Is that? Okay, do you mind if we take 5 minutes to figure out that we're amending?
The mayor has her hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mayor Terziano.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So does Councillor Fitzgerald. Is your screen not showing hands today?
I don't know what the deal is. I didn't see Councillor Armour at all, and I didn't. Well, I did see you, and I did make reference. And
I would just like staff to comment one last time before we drop any more amendments. I realize we have a housing crisis in town, but if we're going against the provincial policy, the district policy, and our own official plan, I'm just not sure that's really good planning. So I would like staff to weigh in one more time as to why they were denying the two in the first place. If it's against all three levels of government, perhaps we should listen.
Okay, I'll ask Adam. You take a crack at that.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So to summarize, the 2-unit proposal does not meet the district's official plan, which explicitly says 1 secondary residential unit. And secondly, the proposal does not meet the provisions of the Planning Act, which allows for 1 secondary residential unit in a accessory structure and 1 residential unit in a single detached dwelling, but it explicitly does not contemplate 2 units in 1 accessory structure. And for that reason, staff were of the opinion that the proposal was not in keeping with the provisions of the Planning Act and could not give the application favorable consideration.
Okay, that's appreciated. And you'll recall that the district was very clear they're not supportive according to their official plan too. So who did I miss? Councillor Armour or Fitzgerald? Maybe one.
I see Fitzgerald has his name. I hand him. I just have a quick question.
I'm not seeing hands, so I can't tell. So I don't.
We'll start waving. Just a quick question. I know it meets the building plans or planning code or for having a building. So adding 4 bedrooms to the current septic system, is that sufficient enough to handle that many people in one area? Did they check that out too, I would assume?
Madam Chair, through you, depending on committee's decision today, that would all be captured at the building permit process when everything's looked at that point, number of fixtures for septic and things like that.
Okay, appreciated. And Councillor Fitzgerald, that you did have your hand up, I guess. I didn't see it, but
Thank
I'm
you, Chair
assuming.
Alcock. I like the discussion we're having around this concern of 2 secondary units. I guess my thought process is that if you can have one in a house and one in an ancillary or secondary building, that's 2 units, and that's exactly what they're proposing here is 2 units. They just happen to be in an ancillary building, and maybe it's time we started pushing our OP and the district's OP and revising some stuff, because it's not getting any better, and it seems like a reasonable proposal to me. So, there's a few words here and there in policy that are preventing this from happening, which I think is a travesty, really. So, I support it fully.
So you'll second Councillor Stone's proposed.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right, with that, and part of the problem, if anybody's using their little hand, I'm not seeing any of those. So if you have a question, you need to put your hand up like that. So maybe that's why. And Dan, you're really fuzzy, so I don't know, maybe that's why I can't see you. So I'm going to take a 5-minute break. It is 1:41, and so 1:46, we'll return with the proposed amendment, okay? So I think we're almost ready. We've had the sage counsel of our clerk. And indeed, we only have to amend one part of our amendment. And then we have to move back, but that's okay. Julie's going to walk us through this. In any minute now, we'll post the, I have 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm missing Councillor Fitzgerald. So that's important since he is, I think he's, there he is. We're back. We are back. And I thought this was going to be a straightforward meeting. All right, so we now have another amendment, and it has been moved by Councillor Stone, seconded by Councillor Fitzgerald. It is recommended that the following be struck out. The following word be struck out. 2. The following word be inserted. 1. So does that make sense from everybody that we're removing that from the amendment? Questions or comments? All those in favor? That carries. All right, moving right along. I'd signed something, but I don't have it in writing. There we go. We'll remember. And Julie's about to post the next one. The mover, can I ask Councillor Stone, will you move the next one? And Councillor Fitzgerald, will you second the next one? Okay. I have another motion moved by Councillor Stone, seconded by Councillor Fitzgerald. It is recommended that the following word be deleted, deny, and further that the following word be inserted in its place, approve. Clear to everybody? Questions? No. All those in favor? And that carries. All right. We have one more to go. And again, the mover and seconder for the last one, can I assume Councillor Stone and Councillor Fitzgerald? Great, good. Okay, I have a motion moved by Councillor Stone, seconded by Councillor Fitzgerald. It is recommended that Planning Committee approve zoning bylaw amendment Z22-2021 HTE, changing the zoning from a rural residential zone with exception 0108 to a rural residential zone with amended exception 0108 to permit 2 secondary residential dwelling units within an existing detached garage and increase the maximum permitted secondary residential dwelling unit floor area from 75 square meters to 148 square meters. Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that carries. All right. Thank you, everybody, for your patience. And I just want to remind everybody that for the next 2 items, I'm not seeing the little hands. If you're using your electronic hands, they're not showing up. So you have to do it wave. All right, that was our only public meeting item. Ms. DeGazio, we're moving to our next item. I see, thank you. So now that all comments have been received, I declare these public meetings respecting the above application to be concluded. We will now move to the non-public portion of the meeting. If the applicant or their agent wishes to make comments regarding their application, please raise your hand after the staff presentation. So that is for the next item. So the first one up is Z13 2021 HT Brunel Road Management 24 and 26 Veterans Way. And that would be over to you, Richard.
Thank Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Through you, I'll just start sharing my screen.
Okay.
Okay, and I understand you can see it now. So again,
Yep.
thank you. Through you, the subject lands are located at 24 and 26 Veterans Way. The lots are currently zoned residential 4 and are designated urban residential in the official plan. This matter is back before committee for a second occasion at the request of the applicant. As you'll recall, the applicant intends to construct a 2-story, 6-unit multiple dwelling building to the rear of the existing duplex at 24 Veterans Way. A shared parking lot to service the new building, existing duplex, and the existing 4-plex at 26 Veterans Way is also proposed to the rear of 26 Veterans Way. Additionally, the applicant intends to work with the district to provide new rental units as affordable/attainable housing units, and will seek funding under the Muskoka Affordable Housing Initiative program. Following the September 15th, 2021 public meeting, a decision regarding this matter was postponed for 1 month to permit further discussion between the applicant and the surrounding neighbors who had expressed concerns in both written and oral submissions. The expected consultation has now occurred, and email correspondence, as well as a letter of support from the abutting landowners, whom were individuals, again, that had shared concerns in the past, were provided to staff. These items are in the staff report and are attachments number 1 and 2. As an outcome of the discussions, various impact mitigation measures were identified by the proponent and agreed to by the proponent and the abutting landowners. The proponent agreed to implement these as itemized in attachment 1. There are 8 of these items agreed upon. The draft bylaw has been revised to include a slight revision with a new requirement for a 2.4 meter high privacy fence, whereas in the past it was a 2.1 meter high privacy fence. So that would be the change to the bylaw, and the fence would be located along the rear. The holding provisions would remain the same, although it should be noted that the abutting landowners did identify their support for a reduction of the additional expenses implied therein, particularly the cash in lieu of parking and the added cost of pedestrian infrastructure. As committee will recall, these holding provision clauses were recommended by staff to address implementation of community benefits as appropriate. Aside from the 2.4 meter privacy fence, the other impact mitigation measures agreed to were non-zoning matters, but could be implemented through site plan control or through a private agreement between the parties. Site plan control measures were items 1 to 4 in attachment 1, and they included provisions to restrict exterior windows and doors facing north towards Princess Street, no balconies on the 6-unit building, and no exterior lighting fixtures on the north side of the building or in the parking lot that would face north. So again, those matters could be addressed through site plan control, and the proponent agreed to do that. Items 6 to 8 in attachment 1 address off-site works on private lands, such as tree planting, tree retention, and privacy fence installation on those lands. And these were deemed not suitable for inclusion or implementation through a site plan agreement. These matters should be addressed through a private agreement between the proponent and the affected abutting landowners. So the major change to the zoning is with respect to the fencing, but there have been other mitigation measures that the proponent has agreed to in consultation with the neighbors. Again, some site photos to remind you of where we are and what the existing structures look like The proposed new building would be in the rear of 24 Veterans Way. 26 Veterans Way is here, and the parking lot would be there. The fencing that's referred to would be along the rear. And again, it's a 2.4 meter fence. And there was also, the proponent also agreed to do vegetation on the other side of the fence, as well as there's a requirement in the zoning bylaw for a vegetative buffer on their side of the fence. So the application was circulated in accordance with the provisions of the Planning Act. 2 letters of objection were provided in response to the public meeting notice and were appended to the previous report. The proponent has agreed to various mitigation measures requested by staff and the abutting landowners to address these concerns. Building has provided comments and has indicated that a building matrix should be provided to help address applicable code requirements in light of the reduced rear yard setback. And it's understood that non-combustible building options may need to be explored in order to address these requirements. Also, they indicated that the limiting distance for the existing building, the duplex, should also be addressed to determine appropriate building location, construction, and number of windows. And this advice has been communicated to the proponent. And this would be addressed at the building permit stage. The application appears to conform to the policies of the official plan and be consistent with the provincial policy statement. Therefore, staff are continuing to recommend that the application be approved, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Richard. I will read the motion that's before us, and it has been moved by Councillor Fitzgerald, seconded by Councillor Armour. It is recommended that Planning Committee approve zoning bylaw amendment Z13 2021 HT, changing the zoning from a residential 4 zone to a residential 4 holding zone with an exception to permit a maximum density of 12 units within a maximum of 3 multiple residential buildings, require a minimum 2.4 meter high privacy fence and minimum 1 meter wide vegetative buffer for visual screening along the rear lot line, reduce the required number of parking spaces from 18 to 11, reduce the required landscape buffer width around a parking lot from 1.5 meters to 1.4 meters, reduce the required lot area for each residential dwelling unit from 167 square meters to 112 square meters, reduce the easterly side yard setback from 6 meters to 2.1 meters, reduce the rear yard setback of 10 meters to 1.4 meters, and reduce the maximum building height from 11 meters to 8.3 meters, and that the holding provision may be removed and development may proceed upon the Director of Development Services being satisfied that the following has been completed. Adequate provisions for attainable housing and pedestrian infrastructure are secured to the satisfaction of the Town of Huntsville, and a site plan agreement has been entered into to address these matters. The subject lots being merged on title and cash in lieu of parking being provided in accordance with bylaw 89-200 in the amount of $21,000, which means $3,000 per parking space. With that, I would ask if there are questions from committee. Councillor Fitzgerald.
Thank you, Chair Alcock. I noticed the comment about cash in lieu of parking. I think for affordable housing, that's an interesting concept, but we don't know whether the district is going to have an arrangement made with the proponents and the applicant or not. So I'm all for it for affordable housing of removing that. I know in previous meetings, we had discussions about revisiting our cash in lieu of parking policy. So maybe that should become part of it as we try and encourage attainable housing builds. So I'd be willing to put a motion forward that we do in fact remove the cash in lieu, provided they enter into an agreement with the district for a typical contract period of guaranteed rents. Because no one else is coming to the table to build these places right now. We need more.
Okay.
Hopefully someone will second that for me.
All right, I will ask, my apologies, I jumped very quickly to committee and I bypassed the step where if the applicant would like to speak to this application, still getting used to that process, but there we go. And I noticed that our deputy clerk is here, so my guess is yes.
That is correct. I can see that, I believe it's the agent has raised their hand.
All right, thank you. My apologies to the agent. Aha. Welcome.
Good afternoon,
Gallagher.
Madam Chair, members of Planning Committee. John P. Gallagher here on behalf of Burnell Road Management. I believe Ken Hoban would like to say a few words after I'm done as well. I think Richard has outlined the discussions that were held. After the public meeting, Salim and Tracy met with the owners of the property. I sort of stayed out of it. I thought it was better for neighbors and owners to talk amongst themselves. And they came to a resolution in addressing the valid concerns that Salim and Tracy had. It was very heartening to see the amount of support provided by them in echoing the request to remove the fees on this attainable housing project. Or there was just an explosion outside there. With the attainable housing, the whole purpose of this application is that it's made subject to that, because that's how we're attaining the density on the property. We did request that the parking standard be decreased through the zoning. And if that's being the case, then in theory, parking shouldn't be charged either way. That being said, $21,000 is a lot of money. And that, for example, 1 year of rents on 6 units at $300 below market value, that would equal $21,000. And that would have to carry on for at least, I believe, 15 years on this type of project. So we'd respectfully ask that committee waive that condition for the cash in lieu of parking. Again, my client has other parking lots directly beside this. There are numerous spots throughout, and we understand that the road is going to be upgraded as well in the near future, which may allocate for some additional spots there. Lastly, with regards to the pedestrian infrastructure, we did not know a fee, an amount, and so it was kind of hard to judge, whether we were supportive of it or not. So again, we would ask that that condition be waived. My client still would have to pay his charges to the development charge, and at 6 units, you're probably in the neighborhood of around $50,000 right off the top for that. Again, the project fits into the site. The whole area was designated as a multiple residential when the town did their zoning bylaw. We have have it tucked in behind. We've kept the building a low profile and addressed the concerns of the neighbors by removing windows and lighting impacting on those adjacent properties there. With regards to the comments from the building department, so noted, it will likely result in a hardy board cement fiber siding being placed on the building to address any fire related issues. And our designer will ensure that that matrix is met upon submission of the building permit. Again, we think it's a great proposal. As Councillor Fitzgerald stated, not many people are stepping up to the plate on this, and luckily in this situation, the owners have the land already, which makes it somewhat doable. And so I think I would ask all of Planning Committee to support creation of 6 attainable apartments in this location. Thank you, and I think Ken wants to just say a few words.
Thank you, John. I'm assuming Crystal is, yeah, good. All right. Welcome, Ken. Your mute is on, Ken.
You'd think at this point. Apologize. It's Ken Open, 918 Jones Lane, Huntsville, A1H1B2. To keep this brief, I think Richard did a great job of outlining. I think there was a good hearty discussion last month. John's outlined a couple of the key points. I guess really my comment is I'm here for any questions that there are. At the end of the day, though, this really is a partnership at the end of the day. And so, as Councillor Fitzgerald had mentioned, you know, this is very much tied to being attainable housing. If that were not the case, I'm not so sure this would stand. So we're trying to build this piece by piece. And so we really do request that we get consideration for both the application itself and for some of the considerations around those additional fees. These are complicated, and they're not complicated, they're very difficult to make work financially, and that is a significant impact. Other than that, if there's any questions, I simply prepare to address them. With the final point that clearly, and again, you know, we're jumping around a little bit on the meeting, but if there were ties to the attainable housing, there's absolutely no question that is our goal. And however that has to be articulated, if there was a relief on the fees, that would be very much appreciated, and we're certainly prepared to commit to that entirely.
Okay, I really appreciate that. So I will ask committee, while we have both John and Ken here, are there any questions of either of them? Yes, Mayor Terziano.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Probably through you to Kirsten. The piece on the parking fees, I know we have an affordable housing program and we have funds set aside for affordable housing. Could something like the parking fees not be addressed through that fund once the building was built and indeed have something like a 20-year lifespan to be affordable?
Through you, Chair Alcock, I would have to confirm that. I really don't know if the parking would qualify in that same program. It's quite specific. It speaks to building and planning fees, but whether or not we could incorporate the parking, I will review that though and see if I can get an answer.
Certainly the DCs would be covered by that though. And that was the other request I think I heard. So we have a program that where we could waive the DC charges in this case, and we have a program that would cover it. So that part. All right, Councillor Stone.
Just a quick comment. I understand this is desperately needed, and there's not a lot of people coming forward for it to actually put these structures up. But the $3,000 per parking space is recognized by everybody as being very low, and we plan on changing that. But this is not 100% a philanthropic endeavor. There are profits to be made at some point for the people that are going to this effort. So I don't know that I'm prepared to waive the parking fees.
Okay, appreciated. Are there any comments from other members? Mayor Terziano.
Yeah, just one more. I thought maybe there would be a way to do it through affordable housing. I guess if there's not necessarily, and we were to look at it at this planning stage, I would want to know what actual tools we have to ensure that this would be affordable housing and would be in place for a minimum of 20 years, which I think is the district's number. So I couldn't entertain it at this stage without some sort of assurances.
Okay. All right. I'm Councillor Armour first, followed by John.
Thank you, Chair Alcock. I believe with the affordable housing that you'd have to make application to the District of Muskoka, and if the application is not approved, then could we not just leave that 23,000 parking in there? So if they don't do affordable, then they have to pay it. If it does become affordable, then we could look at waiving the money or through development fees.
I think that's an excellent suggestion, actually, Councillor Armour. I had understood with this application that all along that you had submitted or planning to submit to the district. John, could you speak to that, please?
Thank you. That's correct, Chair Alcock. And when you look at Richard's recommendation there in the second part, it speaks that the holding provision may be removed and development may proceed upon the Director of Development Services being satisfied that the following has been completed. And the first notation there's adequate provisions for attainable housing. And again, that's the premise of the application, is to work with the district in this regard. And it's right in there. If adequate housing or attainable housing wasn't part of the scenario, it wouldn't have been approved, because density bonusing was based on that. And that's my professional argument, was based on the fact that your policy in the official plan had mentioned that that is a method to increase density. So thanks.
Appreciate that. Thank you for the explanation. Mayor Terziano?
Yeah, thanks. It's interesting, John should mention bonusing. Is there any limit to the number of bonusings we do on any one application? Because the waiving of parking would be another bonusing.
Again, this is the, when you look at the policy in the official plan, and just let me find it here. What it states is, this under section 3.312, residential density provisions may be exceeded for medium and high density residential where community benefits are provided by the developer to the satisfaction of the town and are legally secured by appropriate agreements with the town. Such community benefits may include, amongst other matters, underground parking, provision of attainable housing, increased or specialized activity areas, recreational facilities, community facilities, cultural heritage preservation, public easements or conveyances of the shorelines or other public benefits. And so it doesn't speak to, you know, I need one, I need three, I need five of those to qualify, which would also say you only need one to qualify. It's up to the committee to make that determination based on their policy. But again, when you look at the actual parking spaces that are provided in a lot of these homes with one bedrooms, there's just not the same level of parking. And attending the OPPI conference today, City of Kitchener's along their rapid transit, they're actually doing 0 parking spots per unit, which I found really interesting. So part of not having parking is to promote public transit. And a lot of the people that are on a fixed income are using public transit. And so I think that's part of the rationale behind them.
Right. I appreciate all of those comments. Councillor Armour?
Thank you, Chair Alcock. And my understanding from the last meeting, Mr. Oben mentioned that your target group is really community living, that you're looking to make this affordable housing for. Is that still your go-to?
Yes, that's still a factor. Again, it might not be all 6 units, but they have a good working relationship with community living. And if Ken wants to add anything to that.
Ken?
Sure, no, absolutely. Through you, Madam Chair. We have a strong relationship with community living. The other target market is seniors, and that's really generally the population in our affordable housing buildings.
Okay, thank you for that. I have a quick question to Director Maxwell. With respect to the DCs, if we were to use our own DC program to waive them in this case, do we need to include that in our motion, or is that something that can just be applied for by the applicant?
Thank you, Chair Alcock. There is a new program in place where they can be deferred automatically when it's a rental property.
Okay.
I would have to confirm with the treasurer as to whether or not that would work, but for the waiving of them, that would meet the requirements of our affordable housing rebate policy. So we could look at that, but they do have to meet those specific criteria in order to qualify for that. And that's not something I think it'd be done without an amendment to the policy.
It can be done, it's straightforward, it's a program area, okay. So that's good to know, that can be done separately. So the only issue, and I'd still have the suggestion from Councillor Fitzgerald with respect to putting a motion forward to amend to delete the requirement for cash in lieu of parking. Is that correct, Councillor Fitzgerald? Okay, and that would require a motion that from us, right? Director Maxwell, yes. Okay, so is there anyone on committee who would second that motion? Oh, I have Richard has his hand up.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Just 2 points of clarification, and I think it might help with the next part of the discussion. So one of the items that's been alluded to is there's also been, as part of those holding provision clauses, the note about pedestrian infrastructure. And Mr. Gallagher referred to that and indicated that that he'd like that waived also, just so that committee has the information in front of them. We did hear from our operations department, and the calculation they'd be using is based on the frontage of the combined property, which would be 36 meters. So multiplying that by the width of a sidewalk, which is 1.5 meters, and the cost of sidewalk infrastructure, they determined that the ballpark figure would be about $9,000 for pedestrian infrastructure. And the other item, just to clarify also, when Mr. Gallagher pointed out the community benefits policies of the official plan, there are also policies in the implementation sections of the town's official plan about how we are to implement those height and density bonusing community benefit policies. And they don't restrict the community benefits to being just one. What they say is that we're supposed to look at providing community benefits that would be above and beyond those that would be otherwise provided under the provisions of the plan, the Planning Act, or the Development Charges Act. And we're supposed to make sure that there's a reasonable connection between those community benefits and the application that's before us. So those are kind of the things to consider when you're deciding on what community benefits to ask for. And those are in section part F 1413 of our policy. Just wanted to put that out there. And staff considered that when we made our recommendation.
Okay, thank you. Not sure if that affects it. Councillor Fitzgerald, are you still prepared to move forward with your proposal? Yes, okay. Is there another member of committee who would second Councillor Fitzgerald's motion? Okay, either Councillor Armour or Wiebe. I think Councillor Wiebe, you had your hand up first. So, do we have that amendment? Okay, we need to take a second. So we need to take more than the second because the second is up. So how about we take, it's 2:21, how about 2:25, all right? Or maybe a little before that. Okay, I think we're ready. We have everybody back. So Julie is about to put the proposed amendment on the screen. Okay, and I do have a motion moved by Councillor Fitzgerald, seconded by Councillor Wiebe, was it, I think? It is recommended that the following line be deleted from the second paragraph, cash in lieu of parking being provided in accordance with bylaw 89-200 in the amount of $21,000, which is $3,000 per parking space. So thank you for that. Are there any questions with respect to that amendment? I don't see any, so I will call the question. All those in favor of that amendment? And that is for it carries. Okay.
You have a nice day.
Thank you both. So we have our, okay, for the amended motion, can I just put down Councillor Fitzgerald, seconded by Councillor Wiebe again? I'm assuming I can. So you're putting that up? And I don't think I have to read the whole thing since because it's on the screen. I do have to read the whole thing? No. Okay, can everybody see that? We do have a motion that has been amended. It has been moved by Councillor Fitzgerald and seconded by Councillor Wiebe. Everything is as I read before, with the exception of the amendment, which was to remove cash in lieu of parking. All right, so that's good. Are there any questions? Councillor Armour.
Thank you. Do we have to add anything here that the affordable housing aspect of it?
No, because that is the first bullet.
That's first bullet. You're right. Correct.
Which adequate provisions for attainable housing. So that's covered. And we don't have to add in the issue around development charges because that can just be covered off with respect to our program area. All right. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that carries. Thank you, everybody. I know it's been a really difficult meeting. It certainly has been for me. So there we go. That carries. I'm signing this one. Okay. You have it. All right. Moving right along. Richard, back to you. Telecommunications tower proposal at 58 Marcos Road.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll just share my screen. All right, so thank you again, Madam Chair. Through you, this matter relates to a new proposed Rogers Telecommunications tower. It's proposed tower C6498, as you can see on the location map. The subject property is 58 Marcos Road. The subject lands are presently vacant and have an area of approximately 53.34 hectares with 640 meters of frontage on Marcos Road and 940 meters of frontage on Brunel Road. The lands contain agriculture fields, grasslands, forests, wetlands, and a 40-meter high hill with associated steep slopes. Additionally, the lands are traversed by 2 watercourses. Approval of telecommunications facilities falls under Industry Canada jurisdiction, but they require proponents of new telecommunication facilities to consult with the municipality that the tower is going to be located in and follow any public consultation processes established by that municipality and determine whether or not the municipality concurs with the application. So in this instance, the proponent is requesting the town's concurrence for their proposed new facility. Due to the potential for land use conflicts, impacts on significant views and vistas, and impacts on ecologically sensitive areas, Council adopted a protocol for telecommunications facilities in 2012. The town's protocol established a process that incorporates requirements above and beyond Industry Canada's default public consultation process. It also provides criteria for exemption from public consultation. Rogers is proposing in this instance to install a 70-meter tower, steel lattice style, self-supporting tower. The tower would be located approximately 212 meters from the nearest residential property, which is here. And it's located along a gravel lane that exists on the property, approximately 231 meters north of the entrance on Markles Road. The justification report provided in support of this proposal is contained in attachment 2 to the staff's report. Renderings have also been supplied showing what would be visible of the tower from different vantage points. The site for the tower is located toward the south central portion of the property, along the existing gravel lane, as I suggested, and on a northern slope of the large hill I referred to earlier. This location is approximately 475 meters northwest of the intersection of Markles Road and Brunel Road, where it will be well situated to provide Rogers customers with improved wireless network coverage along Muskoka Road 10, Markles Road, Brunel Road, and all the surrounding areas. No co-location options exist in the area that would provide the coverage objectives that Rogers was aiming for in this instance, as the closest tower is over 4 kilometers away. However, co-location options will be possible for other carriers in the future if the proposed tower is approved, given the proposed design. So the tower would look like this. There would be a 15 by 15 meter enclosure that would be fenced in, and there are views that have been provided by the proponent of the tower. So the tower is situated approximately here, and the proponent provided views of what the tower would look like from this driveway and this point along Brunel's Road. So I believe this is the driveway, and with the tower installed, you would see it over the trees. This is a view along Brunel Road, and with the tower installed, you'd see that much of the tower. Importantly, there would be no Navigation Canada required lighting for aeronautical safety on this particular tower, and the proponent has received that verification. On behalf of Rogers, the proponent conducted the required consultation by providing mail notification packages within a radius of 6 times the height of the tower to all the landowners within that radius, publishing newspaper ads in the summer of 2019 to advise of the proposal, request feedback, and to give notice that public meetings would be occurring. 2 public information sessions later occurred in September 2019, on the 9th of September and the 13th of September, and additional mail notice packages and newspaper advertisements were provided in June 2021 for additional consultation, with an additional 30-day commenting window provided. Most comments received in written and oral form as a result of this consultation can be summarized as clarification requests, and the proponent provided the clarification needed in response. One objection was noted by a landowner at the September 9th, 2019 public information session, given the tower's proximity to their residence. In response, the consultant discussed this site, explained the rationale for the tower location, confirmed that there'd be no lighting mounted on the tower, and provided additional photo renderings of the tower and what it would look like from their driveway. No follow-up concerns were provided by the objector in response or during the subsequent consultation period in the summer of 2021. Having met the requirements of the Town of Huntsville's protocol with respect to proposed telecommunication towers, staff are recommending that committee do concur with the proposal, and Industry Canada be advised that the town has no objections. And I thank you. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Thanks.
Thank you for that, Richard. Is the applicant here? Would they like to speak to this proposal or application? Sorry.
The applicant or the representative are reminded to use the raise hand button to indicate they would like to address committee. And Chair Alcock, I can see if they have raised their hand.
Okay. Did you say they? Is there more than one?
Sorry, just one person.
Just one. Okay, thanks. Okay.
Hello. It is me. It is they. Me and all my friends.
Okay. Welcome.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Richard, for that presentation. I don't think I really have too much to add.
Okay.
I just thought I would address something that may come up as a question just about the timeline, because if you saw in the report, and as Richard explained, originally we had sent notification for this proposal back in 2019, back when we were allowed to host in-person consultation meetings, which we did. But then subsequently, when we had some of the questions about the lighting and marking, Rogers handles that in-house. So that was taken back to them, which took some time, and organizing a new photographer took time. And then at the end of all that, the priorities had shifted. This was not top of the list. And then this spring, it was brought back under our umbrella. So that's why we chose to do a second notification process. So it wasn't left for so long without anyone being aware. So it was circulated a second time with additional opportunity for comment, not only to the mail list, but as well the newspaper. So hopefully everyone had a fair chance. If they had forgotten about it, they were reminded. As well, we directly followed up with anyone who had commented to us via the contact information they left. So hopefully no one feels they were left out of that process, and otherwise no aspect of the proposal has changed. So that's really all I have to add. And if there are any questions I can help with, I'm on the line.
Okay, thanks, Sean. I should have asked you when you first introduced yourself. I don't believe you informed the committee of your address.
I'm sorry about that. Yeah, actually, sorry, I'll clarify both these things. So my name's Sean Olvey, and I work for a company called Forbes Brothers. It's a construction and consulting company for infrastructure projects, telecommunications, obviously, but we also work on power lines, underground digging, those sorts of things. And our Ontario office is 482 South Service Road East in Oakville, Ontario.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you for that. My miss. All right. So before I turn it over to committee for questions of anybody, I'm going to read the motion. It has been moved by Councillor Stone, seconded by Councillor Wiebe, that having met the requirements of the Town of Huntsville protocol with respect to the proposed telecommunications facility as detailed in the statement of concurrence request from Forbes Brothers Limited dated August 11th, 2021, contained in attachment number 1 to this report, it is recommended that committee concur with the proposal, and Innovation, Science and Economic Development Canada be advised that the Town of Huntsville has no objections to the construction of a 70-meter tall self-support steel lattice style telecommunications tower at 58 Marcos Road. So with that, I will ask if there are questions from committee. Councillor Stone.
I would like to move an amendment to add the statement that simply says, providing that there is no lighting at all on this tower.
Okay, I just have a quick question for Richard. That was part of the report. Does it also need to be explicitly stated in the motion if it? I'm not questioning you, Councillor Stone. It was very much part of the report. So, Richard?
Well, I guess, yes, good question. Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair. I guess what I'm hearing from Councillor Stone is a little bit of extra belt and suspenders just to clarify that that's our expectation. But if it helps Councillor Stone, perhaps Sean could just review again the reply that was received from Navigation Canada about this matter.
Okay, I will ask Mr. Ogilvie. Could you do that, please?
I can, thank you. Yes, so every tower, no matter where it is, every freestanding and even depending on the size, if it's being added to an existing building, has to be assessed by Transport Canada and Nav Canada. Nav Canada is usually more for interference with navigational equipment, and then Transport Canada sets the rules for marking requirements, lighting requirements, you know, if you're near an airport. So Rogers did submit the application to Transport Canada, which notes the ground elevation, the total structure height. They even include an additional couple meters as a buffer. And that came back from Transport Canada, marked no protection required. So there'll be no lights on the tower, and it won't be painted other than the steel color it comes in. So no orange and white, no lights, no flashing lights, none of that.
Does that meet, are you satisfied with that, Councillor Stone? Uh-oh, you froze. There we go.
I only have his word for it, and
you'd like to see
I want to make sure, I would like to see it in.
Well, since you moved the motion, I guess you're entitled. You're entitled. So we're going to add a conditional on, and Julie's typing it as we speak. Is there a seconder for Councillor Stone's amendment? Yes, Councillor Wiebe.
On our raised hands aren't working. You need to wave your hand for the chair to recognize you.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, sorry. I did mention that earlier, Sean. My electronic hands, I can't see them, so I'm relying on.
Oh, sorry about that.
No, that's okay.
I just wanted to add to that. So I'm happy to provide the Transport Canada assessment directly to the town, just so you have a copy. That's no problem. The only issue I want to raise with adding that as a condition is, by law, if Transport Canada changed these requirements somewhere down the line for some reason, Rogers would have no choice but to put a light on it. So I don't think anything will change, but say the extreme circumstance, someone builds an airport nearby for whatever reason, or something else that would set it off, you know, like a helipad for a hospital or something like that. If it ended up close to the tower and Transport Canada changed the rules, it could end up in a situation where Rogers would not be able to satisfy the condition. I don't expect that to happen, but just
or
bringing
might
that
have
up.
to come back to council for something, right? Councillor Stone, do you have a comment?
I was just going to say all the more reason I would like it included.
Right. Because it would change it. Our concurrence today, we're being asked to concur with the report, and this is a requirement for the concurrence.
Understood.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate your comments, though. Okay, so I think we're about to put the proposed amendment up on the screen. A lot of pressure for Julie today, everybody. Let alone your chair, but hey, It's Julie who does all of the work, so there you go. All right, I have a motion moved by Councillor Stone, seconded by Councillor Wiebe. It is recommended that the following words be added, conditional on no lighting being mounted on the tower. Questions or comments about that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that carries unanimously. Okay, all right, and now we can move the amended motion. I'm assuming, can I assume the same? Councillor Stone, will you move the final motion, and Councillor Wiebe, you'll second the final? Yep. Okay. So we have a motion moved by Councillor Stone, seconded by Councillor Wiebe, that having met the requirements of the Town of Huntsville Protocol with respect to the proposed telecommunications facility as detailed in the statement of concurrence request from Forbes Brothers Limited dated August 11th, 2021, contained in attachment number 1 to this report, it is recommended that committee concur with the proposal, and Innovation, Science and Economic Development Canada be advised that the Town of Huntsville has no objections to the construction of a 70-meter tall self-support style telecommunications tower at 58 Markles Road, conditional on no lighting being mounted on the tower. Okay, questions or comments? All those in favor? And that carries. Thank you very much. And I think we've lost Sean. Thank you for coming and appearing before us today, Sean. And Richard for that report. So with that, we have no new business. Under general information, Richard, would you like to give us a verbal update on community planning permit?
Sure, I can, and it'll be very brief. As the whole committee will recall, we had our presentation at our last meeting from David Riley, our consultant working with us on the drafting of the bylaw. During that meeting, the draft bylaw structure was reviewed by David, and his presentation has since been posted on the town's engagement website, myhuntsville.ca/CPP bylaw, for anyone interested. We are, based on the direction from committee at last meeting, we are doing public consultation at this moment on the draft bylaw. There is a public open house scheduled for tomorrow, and it's a virtual meeting, and links to that meeting are available on the town's website under planning notices. And following that public open house, there will be stakeholder meetings, which are scheduled for Friday. And following that, there would be a public open house at the end of this month, which is occurring at full council, a special council meeting. And that will be residents of Huntsville's opportunity to ask questions and let councillors know their comments. The draft bylaw is available at the engagement website, so anyone who's interested can view it. As well, there are schedules on the website that people can view to see what their properties would be rezoned as, or what precincts would apply to their properties. And there's a special interactive mapping tool also available on the website, which allows residents to type in an address, zoom to the property they have an interest in, view the mapping, and provide feedback either about the mapping or the bylaw itself. So once again, that's all available on myhuntsville.ca/CPP bylaw. And I think that's about it for my update. Thanks.
Thank you, Richard. Has there been a lot of interest in it so far, or any feedback from members of the public through the website?
There have been comments received from the public through the interactive mapping tool that I mentioned. Right. So we are receiving those, and then of course we're expecting to hear comments tomorrow at the open house,
Great. Okay.
as well as the stakeholder meetings on Friday. So
Okay.
hoping to get a lot more, but there has been some so far.
Good. Are there any questions from committee? Okay. Thanks, Richard, for that update.
Thank you.
So finally, I do have a motion moved by Mayor Terziano, seconded by Councillor Armour. It is recommended that we do hereby adjourn at 2:52 p.m. All those in favor?